Hey guys, what is going on? It's Brian coming at you with another video. Today we've got Jasmine and Penelope guest starring. Come here, Jazz. Hello. Hello. Penelope sitting in the dirt like she normally likes to. So, I've got a lot of life changes that are going on lately, mostly good. Did test positive for the coronavirus, so I'm currently quarantining from my job. Not really the end of the world. I've had nothing but maybe a mild cough and a little bit of fatigue, but that was like the first day. Since then, I've been fine. You know, I've been going for runs, working out, doing what I normally do. Ergo, staying in the house regardless. But I figured I'd actually utilize my time at home and mention something worthwhile. So I feel like I haven't really featured the Mustang in a while, though. The last thing I think I showed you guys was the Burble and Pops tune that I installed from PD Tuning. I uploaded it onto the ECU on my car, and I think that was the last time, and that was probably about a year ago. So I figured it's long overdue for A, how long it's been, and B, I've done a pretty considerable amount of work to the car. Nothing really engine-wise, mostly cosmetic, which I'm kind of proud of because that's something that I normally don't really pay attention to with cars I have. I seem to focus on the motor. And with this car, I've taken a plunge on a few things that I'll get into as we move along. So it's also worth noting that I've kind of come to a crossroads with my Ecoboost Mustang where I have to kind of decide, do I want to continue modifying to the car, or am I going to want to trade the car in the near future, in which case I'm not going to want to do a lot of modifications that aren't necessarily reversible. So basically that crossroad has been turned into a straightaways since my girlfriend and I decided to purchase a home together. So this house that I've been living in for the past 13 years, I'll be selling. And obviously I'll have a mortgage, so I won't be buying a new car anytime soon or financing one either. So that kind of closed the gap on that. So I'm obviously going to be keeping my Ecoboost Mustang for the foreseeable future, which I don't have a problem with. I like the car. I know it's a semi-controversial concept still, the 4-cylinder Mustang. That's another story for another time, but regardless, I'll be hanging on to this guy for a while. So, in any case, I have done a few mods that have kind of gone past the point of no return. So I'm a guy who mostly focuses on the performance aspect of modifications. I've never really dabbled that much into the aesthetics of a car or visual mods. And I did my first one back in, I guess it was January. You might notice that the Mustang's sitting a little bit lower, not by much, but a little bit lower. So I installed some SR Performance lowering springs, progressive lowering springs, and I basically wanted a small drop, not anything too crazy, just something to kind of close out a little bit of the wheel gap. So for Christmas, my girlfriend bought me these SR Performance lowering springs off, I think it was American Muscle. And I'll just kind of go around because you can tell from different angles, but installed those. So that's a pretty labor intensive mod. Obviously you have to jack the car up, take the wheels off, take all the stock springs off, which can be a little bit of a headache. But my buddy helped me at his garage and we got it done in about 2 hours. So as you can tell, sitting a little bit lower. So the front dropped, we measured it, it was about 1.2 inches, which they say anywhere from 1 inch to 1.5 inches, but mine dropped about 1.2 inches was what we measured it. And then in the rear, we got about an inch drop, and that's about right. So I installed those, and as far as the handling goes, didn't really notice a big difference. Oh, I did notice a big difference. So it responds much better. the ride quality, that's what I was going to say. Didn't really notice a big difference on ride quality. A lot of people will say if you adjust the suspension, your ride quality will get a lot stiffer and you'll feel everything you go over, which is true, but my EcoBoost came with the performance package, which already gave you a stiffer suspension, so didn't really notice anything in that regard, relatively speaking. Definitely handles a lot better, which is awesome. You know, obviously the lower center of gravity, and I'm pretty content with them. Some people say that the springs may sag a little bit after a while because SR Performance is, from my understanding, the American Muscle brand, their own brand of parts. But I have no complaints so far, so I'm going to chalk that up as a win. They're a little bit cheaper price-wise than some of the other well-known spring companies, but regardless, I'm okay with it, and it was a Christmas gift, so all good. The next thing I did was, you may notice, and again, actually, pardon my car's appearance, it is pollen city in New Jersey lately. So I washed this car like 2 days ago and it's already coated in pollen again. But I also installed some spacers to kind of finish up and complement the lowering process that I did on the car. So nothing special, just some Amazon special 25mm spacers. And again, you know, some people are pretty crazy about spacers. They say, you know, you have to get a good brand name spacer, but I just made sure they were hub-centric spacers, meaning they rest on the hub instead of the lug nuts, so that's just a peace of mind to make sure they don't, you know, snap off while you're driving. But I mean, I've had no issues with them. Put them on after 2 or 3 weeks, took the wheels off and checked them. They were fine. So I mean, it was $50 for, I think, a set, and I've had no issues with them. So got that done, and I love it. I love the way the car looks. I already liked it before. When I lowered it, I was like, ooh, man. And just looking at older pictures of my EcoBoost and looking at the wheel gap, I'm like, ooh, man, look at that wheel gap. Didn't notice it back then, but now that my car's lowered, the older pictures are much more noticeable. But so I did that, and then another thing I did cosmetically, let me see if I can get this. I can usually never get the hood opened with the camera in my hand, but we'll give it a shot. Did a little bit of stuff under the hood, nothing crazy, but nope, couldn't do it. There we go. Whew. So, cleaned up the engine bay a little bit. So one thing I did was I spray painted the engine cover. The engine covers on these EcoBoosts, I know they're not meant to look beautiful or anything, but it was just hard on the eyes the way it was. So pulled the engine cover off and spray painted it with some, I think it was called Duplicolor temperature sensitive ceramic coating, and did that. You know, it took me like maybe 4 or 5 hours, like a lazy afternoon. I just did that. So I spray painted it, did a couple coats. Well, first I washed it off with simple green, gave it a light scrubbing, let it air dry, then did it, and it's held up pretty well. There are some spots on the side where I think I could have done another coat, but overall I think it looks pretty nice. It's a little dusty, but it is what it is. And then I had this 2.3 turbo badge that I had on my Mustang, but then I just thought it looked kind of tacky. You know, it was with the SVO badge and I just thought it was too much. So I was just sitting in my garage and I was just like, oh, I'll just slap that on there. So I think it looks pretty good. And then moving on down here, I'm sure you noticed this as well. I installed an HPS cold air intake. So I actually got a really good deal on this intake. On Black Friday, it was on sale on Amazon for like $110 shipped. And I did a little bit of research on it just to make sure it wasn't some no-name company. And it was on American Muscle, which was awesome. And on American Muscle, it was like $299. So it was a steal. And if you're familiar with these, you'll know that they don't really do much on a turbocharged setup, because obviously pulling cold air in and then it's just getting heated again when it gets sucked right into a piping hot turbo. I'm not even pointing at the right spot. So not only that, but also it's been shown that if you just have a cold air intake on this engine specifically, if you're not tuned, there's a good chance you're going to lose some torque and some power. I obviously have a Cobb Stage 1 tune, which is nothing special, but you know, it did. So for tangible evidence, my best 0 to 60 with the stock airbox and a K&N drop-in filter was 5.2 seconds. That was with the Cobb Stage 1 tune and the stock airbox with an air filter, with a K&N air filter. It was 5.2 seconds. After I installed this, did a couple pulls, and my best was a 5.1. So it chipped 0.1 seconds off my 0 to 60. So that's evidence enough. That wasn't really what I was looking for. I basically just threw this in here to clean up the engine bay, and because it was cheap, I just said, why wouldn't I? If it's a, reasonable price, because that's the one big turnoff about cold air intakes is, for the Ecoboost at least, a lot of them I saw were like $350, $400. I'm like, I could get a quality intercooler for that price and actually see some real power gain. So I never thought about purchasing a cold air intake for this car, but because it was so cheap, I figured why not. So pretty proud of how it looks on the interior of the engine bay. Got to dust it off and clean it up a little, maybe put a strut tower brace there, but so far so good. The other thing I did was I changed this guy right here. This is the low side fuel pressure sensor, and what's the general consensus within the Ecoboost community is the stock one it's not faulty, but they have a revised one that they're not putting in any cars for some reason. Like, they have the part in stock and on their inventory, but they don't actually put it in any of the cars. And the stock one, apparently if it fails, it can cause your engine to run lean very quickly, and that's very bad, and your motor can blow as a result. And that's it hasn't been proven 100%, but it seems like a lot of people are leaning towards this guy being the culprit of, eco boom, quote unquote. So if you're tuned, or even if you're not, this is a good thing to replace. Like, you can either check and see if you have the revised low side fuel pressure sensor, but if I was a betting man, I'd say you don't, because even the new ones, the new Ecoboost, apparently still have the old one that's faulty. So it's a $50 part. It takes literally 3 minutes to install. Dozens of videos on YouTube on how to do that if you're curious about that. But I did that, and that gives me a little peace of mind, especially because I'm running a canned tune on the motor currently. So it's a little bit of a peace of mind. So with that being said, that's basically what I've done to the car so far since my last video update. Again, still running the same off-the-shelf tune, same exhaust setup on the rear. I've got the Vibrant Ultra Quiet resonator running out to the Borla Attack axle backs, and still content with that. Wish it was a little bit louder, but for now it's good. Maybe I'll put like a different Vibrant resonator on there in the future, but that's later on. Oh, and this is also something I did while I'm back here. So a few summers ago, there's a storm, a tree branch fell. It dented my trunk, and then it scratched my deck lid back here. So I bought a new one of those for like $90 off American Muscle. It was totally blank, and I wanted to do something different. I didn't just want another pony back there. So I found this on, I think it was eBay. And I know my car isn't technically a 50 years model, even though numerically it actually is. It's a 50-year, it's been 50 years of this since this model was made. Or it's been 50 years when this model was made of the Mustang. And I do have, the premium performance package and whatnot, but it's still technically not a 50 years Mustang, anniversary Mustang. But regardless, I don't care. And then I found this badge on here, it seems like a very like subtle, conservative kind of font, and I think it just really ties the rear of the Mustang together really well. I'm really happy with how that turned out, and that's the only other cosmetic mod I did to the car lately. So anyway, I guess what I was getting at is, so since I'm purchasing a house and I'm moving, I'm obviously going to hold on to the car for a while. So I'm going to have to see how my finances pan out with this new home. But ideally, I'm going to continue modding this car and hang on to it for a while. So I guess my question is, what do I want to do with the car as far as performance goes? So the first thing I want to do is yank out the stock intercooler. And I've been looking at the, I think it's called the CVF or CV Fabrications race intercooler, or the street intercooler. I think it's the street intercooler. I'm not looking to make crazy stupid power on this guy, but I do want more power. And the race intercooler by CVF Fab is pretty decent. And that's one that everyone swears by. So I want to swap out the intercooler. And after that, I do want to get a Pro Tune. And I'll probably go with PD tuning, because Brian's just really awesome. And so I want to get a Pro Tune. And then ultimately, if I ever come into a big chunk of change, I also want to get a larger turbo, preferably an NX2 turbo. And, you know, we'll see what kind of power we can get from that, because, you know, in itself, right now, my car's pretty quick. Wouldn't call it fast, but, you know, it gets up and goes. It can give, you know, a good amount of cars a run for its money. I'm not going to be gapping GTs or anything like that, but I would like some more top end. Obviously, it's like basically any other, you know, consumer based turbocharged car on the market with a 4-cylinder. It has a whole lot of torque down low, but then once you get up to the top end, it just falls flat on its face. So the Cobb Stage 1 tune helped with that a little bit, but it's that power cut is still there when you get into the higher RPM range and higher speeds. And I think an NX2 turbo will help kind of alleviate some of that. Not to mention, a lot of folks on the forums are saying that a larger turbo also helps alleviate some of the strain on the block, which is a weak spot on this 2.3 motor the Ecoboost has. So a larger turbo alleviates a little bit of the pressure, both literally and metaphorically, on the block. So that's another reason why I would like to upgrade the turbo in the future. But other than that, you know, I'm really digging how it looks right now, and I'm probably just gonna keep going with her, you know. It's a 2015, I've had it 5 years, really haven't had any issues that are concerning or that I wouldn't expect, especially considering the car's tuned. So that's basically where I'm at. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. I have a good feeling I'll probably make another video before I move out, but there will probably be a video of me showing, doing a video of my current living situation in Collingswood. The other thing is, got to figure out what I'm doing with my garage. I'm probably going to have to clear out some of this clutter, because the new house we have, it has a big ass backyard and a giant driveway, but no garage. So I'm going to have to figure out what I'm doing with the bike, with all my tools, all of that. So it's a work in progress. We'll see, but I will keep you posted. Oh, and I already mentioned my Kawasaki Ninja's still here kicking. Took her out for a ride now that it's warm, and no, we'll get into that another time. So anyway, one last look at the Stang. I will talk to you guys soon. Have a great day. Stay safe, stay healthy.